Hey, what's up, Whiskey Network? It's Mark Pruitt. I have a very special guest today. I am here with Willie Nile. Willie Nile does not need an introduction, but for your information, he has recorded 13 studio albums in a career that has spanned over 3 decades. He is a very gifted singer-songwriter who has toured the world, has fans all across the globe. He has a very unique perspective wrapped around a classic music style, classic rock. It just doesn't ever go out of fashion. Adoration of the fans, respect from his contemporaries, and acclaim for the press is all there. It is absolutely an honor to have Willie Nile with us here today. And the best news of all, he's a whiskey enthusiast. Willie, welcome today.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your kind words. And it's a pleasure to be here. Talk about a very interesting subject, which I'm learning more and more about as I travel. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Great, great. So let's delve into it because I'm really excited to explore whiskey with you. You've been on the road all over the world, and I would imagine the places that you've been and the things that you've seen, whiskey has been a part of your life for a long time. And I understand that perhaps your journey is evolving, but let's talk about maybe the times before and your experiences with whiskey or what you may have drank in those times. Tell me about the journey up to now before you kind of got to the tipping point that we'll get to later on.
Well, I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and, I like drinking, beer, wine, and whiskey. With whiskey, I didn't have a great knowledge of it when I was younger. And not that I do now, but I know more than I did then. And I always liked it. Jameson's would be a whiskey that I would frequently drink. I like that, Bushmill. When we were when I was recording an album in 1990 with T-Bone Woke, the former bass player for Saturday Night Live, dear friend, great musician. He loved his Bushmills.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. Special guy, really incredible musician, and a real, like an old man in a young man's body, a real character, brilliant musician. And Bushmills was his go-to, and turned me onto that. So I would fairly picky a little bit that I knew, but Jameson's Bushmill, and with traveling, I toured with the Who across the U.S., opening up for the band The Who in 1980 when my first record came out, and it was experience of a lifetime. I was always I love all kinds of music, but as a kid, I loved the British Invasion bands, the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, Kinks, and to get to open up, I had heard that Pete was a fan of my first record, so when I played in Los Angeles at a gig, and the management came to see me, and it came backstage and asked if I wanted to open up the tour for the Who. So on that tour, I said, well, yeah. I thought he was kidding when he first said it. I thought he can't be serious, but he's not kidding. We toured across the U.S. with the Who and the band, and I had a great time. We're all fans, admirers of them. And, we're playing arenas. I went from playing small clubs to arenas. So on that tour, we really had a good time. We were on stage early. And after our show, we would celebrate, each night was and then we would watch the Who play. So there was a fair amount of whiskey that made its way around the sensations of the band, and that I remember really well. We celebrated that whole tour. It was good fun, and whiskey was a strong part of it.
There's something about a job well done, and then coming back to whiskey, and sometimes it doesn't even really matter where, it could be bottom shelf whiskey, it could be the best whiskey on the planet. In that moment, you've opened up for the Who. Absolutely a legendary moment in your life, in your career.
Oh, yeah.
You sit down wherever it is backstage, maybe you're off to the stage and you're drinking something that has to taste like the best whiskey on the planet in that moment.
That's well put. It does. Whatever moments like that, celebrating something, sharing it with the band, with your friends. Here we are on tour playing 20,000, 25,000, and we had gone from playing clubs, 300-400 people. I had never toured with the band. So we did a 3-week tour across the U.S., playing 300-400 seaters, occasional college campus. But all of a sudden, we're open up for 25,000, 20,000, 15,000. It was an absolute blast. I was too ignorant to be afraid. I just enjoyed it. And the whiskey, we would have whiskey afterwards, after the show, and there's something when you celebrate something like that, as meaningful as that, as exciting as that, it tastes all the sweeter,
That's incredible. Did you get nervous in front of 25,000 people?
Not a little bit, but not that much. I was so naive, and I just thought, well, I'm just going to play my songs because I'm one of those. I'm a songwriter. I'm a poet, and for me, it's about the songs. It's not about becoming a big star, a big rock star, whatever. It's never been my interest. I'd love to be stinking rich. I got no problem with that. But it wasn't for the fame and the glory. It was for the music. So I had this great band, Patti Smith's drummer, the bass player from television, 2 great guitar players. And we were out there sharing this experience together. We are on the stage and playing 15, 20, 25,000, playing the songs that meant a lot to me, that still mean a lot to me. So that takes care of the nervousness. I'm not there to prove a point. I'm not there to show off. I'm there to enjoy and celebrate. And so it wasn't too bad. I wasn't that nervous.
If there's one thing that has come across to me, I sat down and I listened to your entire music catalog, and something that it comes through loud and clear across all of your albums, and whether it's a full-on rock and roll song, whether it's a ballad, there's something that comes out of every single song that you make, and there's always that thread of hope, and it just comes through loud and clear to me.
Thank you. That's the best compliment you could give me, because I wouldn't. Life is hard for everybody. We celebrate. We'll have fine whiskey with our friends. We'll talk about the world. We'll celebrate events in lives, between lovers, family, friends. And but life is tough for everybody. Look how successful Michael Jackson was. But I mean, tragic story. And it's to be shared. And I believe there can be some redemption music. I love music of all kinds. And when it's good, when it's like full of life, optimism, I'm never going to make a record that is like brings people down. That's just not going to happen. People who leave my concerts, they go out, like I'll go out and sign CDs at the end of a show. Thank people for coming. And they're always elated, and I get that spirit because I'm elated. The music heals me. This is a wild world we're living in right now. And the music, I'm making a record as we speak, the last week and this week and the coming week, and music can heal. And that's what I love about it. And the songs I make, I'm trying to inspire. They inspire me. So if they inspire others, and if you say you get a sense of hope, then I'm doing my job. Thanks for saying that.
I sat down and I had a glass of bourbon with me, and I put the headphones on and I shut the world out and I just listened. I listened to as much music as I could stand, and it wasn't even like that. It just washed over me. It was just such a great experience. You and I could sit here and we can talk about music all day long. So bear with me for the moment, because I want to jump back into whiskey.
There's a there's a link. There's a reverence. My friend Kevin Moore, Kevin and Janice Moore live in Edinburgh, Scotland, and to have a glass of whiskey, Kevin took us to his favorite. I was there. We're touring with the band. We were in Edinburgh, and a number of times, and Kevin would take us to his favorite pub, the Hollywood 9A, and we sat down in there, and it was like a cathedral on a small. And just his reverence for drinking whiskey, I couldn't believe it. It took us 5 minutes to take a sip. He was talking about it, and he was so eloquent about it, and his reverence. So I have a reverence towards music and life, and whiskey is something that, it's everything about it. It's about character, and his reverence towards hearing him speak about whiskey was, I couldn't believe my ears. Wow, it's passion, beautiful.
Oh,
So
and you're right. It's connected to whiskey. It's basically the same thing. I could sit here and I could talk about your music like that a lot. And I'm glad you brought up Kevin and Janice, because that's an important part of your whiskey journey. And that was a tipping point for you. And I think that that's a fantastic aspect to focus on for you. Here you are, you talk about your history with whiskey. It's always kind of been around. It's always something that you've done.
Yep.
But something happened with Kevin and Janice. And this has been the tipping point, the revelation for you. Tell me about that.
A couple of years ago, we were playing in Asbury Park in a place called the House of Independence. And it was a packed house. It was going to be a night of celebration, friends seeing friends. A community develops around music. And so Janice had just come over from Edinburgh. And when she came, she would always bring some whiskey for my friend James Maddock, another great singer-songwriter. And so she said, Willie, I bought you a present. She said, Kevin, my husband and I went on vacation this summer. It was actually 2 summers ago, to an island on off the coast of Scotland called Islay. She said, and she was telling me about it. There's 8 distilleries there. It's a famous place for whiskey, and they went there and they toured around there. And she brought me back. How did she phrase it? She said she got a small square foot of land as a friend of Lafroig, and they gave her a bottle, and she brought that bottle for me. And we're backstage before the show, and I said, "Oh, this is great, And I said, let's toast before the show." So I opened the bottle up, I smelled it, and the sensation was just it was delightful. So we all had sips, and each of us had a similar reaction, like, "Whoa, this is incredible!" And then I became laser focused on why is this so good. And we spoke about it, and she told me about Islay. And it's funny, I was on the phone with her earlier today about something, and she had told me back in the past that Lafroig and Lagavulin they're right next to each other, and that you can walk from the village. I guess Ardbeg is right there. These 3 distilleries are right next to each other. And she said, so when you walk from the village, you see people coming back doing the wobble. And I said, that's a dance. I'm going to do the wobble. So I said, well, I want to go to Islay with you, and we can do the wobble together. It's just, some things make life worthwhile. And
sounds like a song you need to write in the future.
I think there's a dance song in there somewhere. Willie and the Wobble.
The Ardbeg Wobble.
The Ardbeg Wobble.
It's interesting. You talk about, look, I'm not an expert, but I've been around enough to know whiskey is something that's very simple to produce, but there's an aspect to it that just isn't controlled. You can put ingredients together, you can boil them, you can produce, the mash, you can do all of these things, and then you can put it in a barrel, and then it kind of does its own thing, right? And when you look at Islay and the geography, the climate, and the water and things like that go into it, it's a fantastic combination that produces a very unique experience from a region perspective. And I brought out some notes about the coastal breeze that you can taste, the salinity in the whiskey. And I was reading up on these whiskeys. The whiskeys have gotten a little bit sweeter, but still there's that kind of briny savoriness. Dialing into that, is that what you're tuning into when you drink those whiskeys?
I think so. When I was with Kevin at the Holyrood 9A, his favorite pub, was there all the time. And he sat down and goes, "Now, I want to walk you through this." He knew that I was, we were not, I was with my band experts, and his description. And I said, "Do me a favor, send me that," because he said, "Well, there's first the eye." He said, he says, "How the whiskey captures the light, and if it clings to the glass in a slightly oily way." We're all of us looking at our glass. Okay, yeah. He says, "The nosing." What's that? 3 points across the glass. I'd never heard of that before. Like he would take a glass, and he just put your nose in a little bit across the top, And he says the nosing, 3 points across the glass. The top note is the lightest, florals, citrus notes, smoke, perfumed. The middle note heavier and more intense, usually where the notes from the barrel are present. And for me, it was like poetry. He was like a shaman, and oak, bourbon notes, sherry cask notes, and finally the bottom note, which I call the distillery note. It's deep and strong and very alcoholic. Well, we had yet to take a sip. He was describing and illuminating it in great detail. The palate, he said. Then the next, always take a tiny amount of whiskey, teardrop, to discover the flavor. Coat your mouth with it. We have still yet to swallow a drop. Coat your mouth with whiskey and let the air at it before swallowing. I realized, this 5 minutes just went by, but it was fascinating. So his passion, just flat out passion, and it's about the character and what it reveals about so much of life. To hear him talk about it is quite the experience. If anybody goes to Edinburgh, I'll give you I'll tell you, go to the Hollywood 9A. If Kevin,
ask for Kevin.
If Kevin Moore is there, yeah. And he says the flavor is a personal thing, as is the nosing. It's your life experiences that help you understand the smell and flavor. I loved it because it's a deepening. My exposure to Scottish whiskey, and through Kevin and Janice, that I like character, whether it's in music and people, film, and it's a journey I'm happy and excited to be on. We were in. Go ahead.
There are just fantastic parallels to music there, and there are fantastic parallels to how you make music and life as well. The music isn't just, hey, I'm putting on music and I'm listening to music, especially when you look at, and I have to highlight this because it's unfortunately pandemic times and we're missing live shows. When you go to see a live show, live music, it's the venue that you're in. To your point, whether it's 25,000 people or whether it's 250 people, it's the smoke in the room. It's whatever you happen to be drinking at the time. It's how loud the band is. It's the presence of the person who's on stage who can sort of make that connection with you. It's basically the same thing, that it becomes this very sort of sensory, like sensual, it's just this connection that just hits you right between the eyes. And it's a fantastic thing. And I love the fact that you're going on this part of the journey. I love the fact that we're talking to you kind of in this moment. So I guess for me, a logical next question about whiskey is, what does the future hold? Obviously, we're under some travel restrictions. Hopefully we're going to break free from that. Yeah. Is there a trip to Islay in your future? And how are you going to go about exploring what you find?
Well, hopefully we sooner than later we can get through this difficult pandemic. It affects everybody, and it's serious business. But there will come a time when things open up more, and live concerts will, open up again. And I always go at least once a year to the UK to tour in England, Wales, Scotland, and sometimes jump over to Ireland. By the way, I didn't realize that they spell Ireland has W-H-I-S-K-E, whereas in Scotland there's no E, W-H-I-S-K-Y. I love it. There's so much character in that part of the world.
Sure.
I will go to Edinburgh. Janice Moore is a dear friend, and Kevin. They're wonderful people. So we will go back there. And I told Janice, I want to go to Islay, and I want to experience that, smell the sea air, walk on the ground, feel under my feet, go to the distilleries, see what the nuances, the differences, and with Kevin there to explain things and educate me. That's definitely going to happen, sooner than later. We were in talking about a couple of road stories. We were in Newcastle in England, the band and I, and we had done a show there, and we always do well. Good crowd come out. The Scottish audiences are very. I remember I was touring with the Alarm, and I was opening up solo acoustic. Great band. Some years back, I was opening up for them solo. They were playing like 2,000, 1,500 seat places and stand-up audiences. And they're well known at people didn't know who I was. Some did, you know, a couple of hardcore music people, but so I come out with my acoustic guitar, you know, and they're all feisty audiences, you know, and they're
Hmm.
feeling good. So and the band told me that I would go out and play my set, and I know how to deal with that. You know, I know how to play with a vibrant, lively audience. You better be good or have something, or you know, the hook. And I did really well. I got them singing along, and it's great. And they said, "Well, they're going to love you in Scotland." And I said, the band on the tour bus, I said, "Why do you say that?" I go, "Oh, you'll find out." So I just kept hearing that they're going to love you in Scotland. So we get to Glasgow, and we're playing the O2, you know, a big venue. And I
Hmm.
walked out there, and everybody was feeling. It was no pain. It was like it was celebrate time. And I went out there, and from the first song, okay, because they're passion. They're very passionate uh, about their music and their drinking and everything, life. I just love their attitude. So we were in Newcastle, north of England, rough and tumble city. You know, Mark Knopfler is from that area. He
Yep.
grew up there,
Hmm.
and it can be a rough town. You got to anyway. So we had a show one night, went really well, and so we were at a pub afterwards celebrating, having some whiskey, and I went out. I went out for something, and I came back. And I heard a story later that one of the guys in my band was chatting up a girl at the bar. You know, she was sitting at the bar, and hey, how you doing? Oh, yeah, you know, and he's a rocker from the Lower East Side, and up comes my. Unfortunately, my tour manager was with him, and a fella comes up to him and says, "Hey, you know," he says, "How you doing? Oh, nice to see you. Oh, you're a musician." I says, "You ever hear the Glasgow Kiss? Glasgow Kiss?" He goes, "No, I didn't." Well, right away when he said that, my tour manager took him by the arm. We got to go. He walked him, took him out because that's a headbutt. They'll just go.
Oh no.
It was apparently it was the guy's girlfriend, and he was about to get headbutted. So the combination of music, touring, travel, women, whiskey. That was fortunate that he didn't get headbutted. And another time we were in we were in Dublin and playing a legendary venue, Whelan's, and U2 played there. You know, all the bands that came up, and you know, last 40 years played there. And I got there, and after we did soundcheck, I went backstage, and there was a big gift box for me, and I opened it up, and it was I got the card here. We spoke the other night. I was telling you the story. There's a card and a big box. I opened it up, and there's bottles of Guinness and champagne, and I went and I opened the card, and it said, "Welcome to Dublin, the U tours." It's from U2, and
Oh,
because I'd invited Bono and the band to come to the show, you know. And apparently there's something called Black Velvet, which is 1 part champagne, 3 parts Guinness, you know. And we drank whiskey that night, and some of the guys drank Guinness, but I had some Irish whiskey. And you never know on the road where your road will, you never know where the road will take you. And if you're open to it, open to new experiences, as I am with whiskey now more than ever, I'm fascinated by
the reverence in the industry that people have of you and the respect that's there, you know, the alarm taking you under their wing in their territory, you know, you two get, look, Black Velvet, I mean, come on, you know, send, you saving the card, that's a fantastic memento.
it. I mean, it meant so much to me. It was a kind act, you know. They didn't have to do that. You know, I'm not a big famous cat or anything, but they're respectful, and it meant the world to me, you know, that they thought enough to make that effort. And it reminded me of a very sweet night. So yeah.
We talked a little bit earlier. I was making mention of making of whiskey, and
Hmm.
as I was listening to your music, I was thinking about, you know, this process. And I'm not a musician. I'm not very musical, but I recognize how difficult it is. I mean, people can learn to play instruments, but it's very difficult to make music that has that emotion attached to it. And I think what's more above and beyond that, there's a couple of videos out there of you where it's just you and an electric, or I'm sorry, an acoustic guitar.
Hmm.
And the craftsmanship that goes into that, the ability that goes into that is, it's a lot like whiskey. It's a little unpredictable because it's acoustic, and it's not like you're up there on stage with a band. But being able to carry something like that, being able to kind of put that recipe together, and then sort of throw it to the wind, throw it to the fates, to kind of see what happens. That's a very rare ability. And I think when you look in the big picture of how people look upon you in the industry, that's reflective of your talents. And there's parallels there to the whiskey world. Those are fantastic stories. A question that I have. Mm-hmm. We've interviewed a couple of folks from the music industry and things like that, and I'm always kind of curious, because the road is a great place for shenanigans, right? You got to cover a lot of miles, and you got to keep smiles on your face. And whether a band's playing a 25,000 seat arena or whether a band's playing a 250 seat arena, are the shenanigans the same, or do they change? I mean, are bands pranksters?
I think it depends on, it's different in every case. I think that how much you party. I mean, for me, if you're serious about it, you take care of yourself. You can celebrate and you can have fun along the way, but, and it happens, there's lots of people that become victim to that lifestyle. And there's lots that don't, so I don't know that it matters whether it's an arena with 20,000 people or a club with 100 people, 250. You can get carried away in either venue, and but I've been lucky. I've been able to walk the line well enough because I enjoy myself, but I'm disciplined enough that I take it seriously enough because it matters to me. I'm lucky. I get to do what I love, and that's what carries me forward. I'm still a believer. I believe in character. I believe in quality, and that's music, whiskey, life. So yeah, I mean, I've seen all kinds of stuff in my travels on the road, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's possible to maintain, and do it in a way that's sensible.
There aren't a lot of people who can survive in the music industry as long as you have and maintain that outlook of hope. That is a fantastic quality that you have done well to preserve. So hats off to you for that.
Thank you. I've been fortunate. I had a good family. That my mother was always, my father, good people. My dad's 103, and he's doing great.
Great.
But they instilled in me a sense of optimism and of treat your neighbors good, and life is hard, but make the best of it. It was a really good foundation, so it makes it easier for me. But I wouldn't be doing this if it didn't mean the world to me. I won't go in the recording studio unless I think I've got something special that could be meaningful. And to get to share it, that's what we did these past 2 weeks in the studio. I'm making a new record. And the other night, we were recording a song, a song I wrote, which I dedicated to John Lewis. John Lewis is the great civil rights. I met John Lewis a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and had a moment with him. He was such a deep cat. And it was celebrating a friend's birthday. Anyway, I dedicated the song to John Lewis. And the song's called The Justice Bell. And some of the guys in the band, one of my buddies said, I never felt patriotic like I do now. It just gave me chills. It's about justice and freedom. And it was everybody was really moved, and after I was in my control room, different rooms. The band is in one big room, and I'm in a smaller room because I'm singing and playing at the same time. And I was late. We've been working hard, and I said, "Boy, I could use a drink," and to celebrate. And also, it was so special that moment, completing the song, which came out just incredible. And next thing I know, and I said to Stuart, "Hey, I noticed you have a bottle of, you've got a bottle of Lefroy in the other room." And next thing I know, he comes walking in with a glass for me, and so we all have headphones on. We can hear each other and talk to each other, and they couldn't see me. And I was talking, all of a sudden they could hear me taking a sip, and my guitar player said, "You're killing me. You're killing me," And so afterwards, we all had a sip to celebrate. a great shared experience. We celebrated with Lefroy. It was a moment I'll always remember.
At the Whiskey Network, that is a core tenet of the things that we believe is, well, there's a lot of things. You're checking a lot of boxes there. Number one, whiskey is meant to be shared. Number two, whiskey is a sensory experience. And number three, that in that moment, in the job well done, it's just this, I don't know, nirvana. It's just this thing that kind of happens that turns the experience into overdrive. I can't wait. Do you have a potential date as to when you think your new album may come out?
Well, we put one out at the end of May this past year, New York at Night, which
I wanted to ask about that too.
Well, so the new one, I'm thinking late May, early June. It's going fast. It's going really, really well. After years of doing this, it's getting easier and easier. New York at Night we put out last year. It's a kind of a celebration of the city. I'll tell you what, it's amazing to me. If you would have said that what would have happened in New York, like the Holland Tunnel is a few blocks from me. I'm in Greenwich Village. Mm-hmm. And on a Friday night, the traffic going out, you can be an hour in line to go 5 blocks. And in April, I remember walking to my storage space, one car, on a Friday night, thinking, wow, and yeah, that's, so the album, it's an album called New York at Night, where I want to celebrate New York and the unique place that it is. The songs, most of them are written here, and yeah,
So New York at Night released May 15th, 2020. So you were busy during the pandemic.
Yep.
Just looking at some of the accolades here, number one song of the week, the best of 2020, cause for celebration, true rock and roll, as sharp and as guitar driven as ever. It's official. Willie Nile takes the mantle from Lou Reed, the King of New York. I love this, the unofficial poet laureate of New York City. One of the most
been drinking whiskey when they wrote that.
One of the most brilliant singer-songwriters of the past 30 years. I mean, for me, New York at Night, one of my favorite cuts on the record. I really like the tempo of that. I want to ask a question about that, but I do like Under This Roof. Under This Roof is a very soulful song. Very introspective. I love the visual, the video that comes with it. That's awesome. And I also really liked Doors of Paradise. That was a very touching, very meaningful song. I did some research and I was looking, and there's a story to New York at Night. I've spent my fair share of time in New York. I don't think I've seen 100% of how crazy New York can be, but I know that there's a little bit of a story that inspired you for New York at Night. Can you share that?
True story, yeah. So the 2 summers ago, I decided that I had songs that could be a solid record, a strong record. And I was on a Friday night in the summertime, I went up to the Iridium, Les Paul's club uptown. Mm-hmm. Just north of Times Square. Went to see somebody play, get at 10:30, came out. I can't remember who it was. And I was walking through Times Square to the subway to come back down to the Village. And I coming down the stairs, beautiful night. And I come down the stairs and the train is pulling in the platform. Train pulls in the platform, the doors open. I start walking towards it, and I notice at the bottom of like near the open doorway, near a guy's foot is this bottle of whipped cream. Like it was Ready Whip. Like, tall bottle. I was thinking, in the doorway. So it must have just been put there. And as I got closer and walked in, I looked at the guy's feet, and he had 2 inches of whipped cream on his both feet, up his legs, on his thighs. And I didn't want to risk looking. Like, what was that creature? But I just thought, someone's covered with 2 inches of whipped cream right here. And it was a fairly crowded car. So I just went to the other end. I found a seat at the other end, so I couldn't see back. And I just thought to myself, wow, New York City. That's one for the book. So I come out here at West 3rd Street, and I come up, and it's a Friday night. It's 11 o'clock at night. There's tourists. There's college kids partying. There's black limousines outside of the Blue Note. there's homeless people with their hands out, you know, and I just thought, wow, New York at night. And it right away I went, that's a song. And I walked 2 blocks home and I just started writing, walking home, came upstairs, picked up my guitar, wrote it, and knew that night that would be the title song for the album. Based on a true experience. I mean, how many people walk in the subway car and see somebody covered in whipped cream? It was like fascinating.
Only in New York. Only in New York.
Only in New York.
Is that where your songs come from? Your songs come from those experiences?
They come from all kinds of places, you know, whether it's a party on a Saturday night song or a love song or a song of sorrow or tragedy or something in the world or the climate, you know, whatever different things going on, whether it's a pandemic. I write about all kinds of things. It's my way of expressing myself, you know, and obviously the things around me. When I walk down the street, there's just no time when you step out in the street, these streets are full of people and buildings with stories to tell. And I can hear them. They speak to me. I'm still as inspired as when I came here when I was a kid from Buffalo. You know, I still feel that fire, and I'm lucky. I consider myself really lucky. You know, and the songs come from real life. Sometimes you make them up, but pretty much based on certain experiences. You know.
I think it's pretty safe to say that the last decade of your career, you've seen a renaissance. And what's interesting to me is, how do you perceive how your music has changed over time?
I think just the comfortability factor. When I made my first record, I had never been in a recording studio, 1980, and it was expensive.
Come on, never having been in a recording studio and you put out something like Vagabond Moon, really? I mean, come on, that's dynamite.
I had really good players around me. You know, it was a great producer and great players. I had a good team around me, and I wrote it because it meant something to me, and I sing it because it still means something. I can't believe when I sing it now, I still feel that passion. So that helps you get through stuff. If it goes to your marrow, if you care about it, if you believe it, that does help you get over bumps. But over these years of recording records and doing, you know, tons and tons. I used to have a little recording studio in my apartment. I got rid of it because I spent years working on stuff, but I really got a knack for how it's done. So I just know more. I'm still learning. This new experience that we just had has been a glorious experience. I've been lucky, very lucky guy.
Absolutely, and it shines through. You know, if you look at the evolution of, you know, you went from something like a Vagabond Moon to something like Back Home or Stories of New York that are kind of more the midpoint of your career to, you know, Far Green Hills or Forever Wild or even Hell Yeah. I mean, I'd love to make Hell Yeah the official soundtrack of Whiskey Network, okay? But you know, I understand that there's probably legalities against that. But you know, when you sort of look at that evolution and sort of the maturity that comes into the songwriting, and you know, you didn't have to go far from Vagabond Moon to other places from a maturity standpoint. But I get you from, you know, you're just smarter. Maybe your antenna is tuned a little better to pick up on the experiences aside from the obvious of 2 inches of whipped cream, man.
The man with whipped cream. Yeah, I'm still learning even now. You know, I'm still like lots to learn and eager to do so, as in whiskey. You know, hence my trip to Isla. You know, down the road. We all learn. We do our best. At our best, we do our best. You know, and try to help the other guy when you can. You know, be true to yourself. You know, and put your best foot forward. And for songwriting and the stuff I write, if I get an inspiration after all these years, I mean, sometimes I don't sit down to write. You know, I wait till it comes to me. You know, and sometimes in the studio more than writing, but I'll have a glass of whiskey. You know, just to it kind of sometimes it just eases things. You know,
Grease the wheels.
Greases the wheels, yeah. And it's Yeah.
You have been fabulously generous with your time, and I want to respect that. And I've got a couple of additional questions I'd just like to cover. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to ask one last question about the music. You had mentioned earlier that you were very much into the British invasion and you had some influences from there. What are some influences that maybe we've not heard of, you know, big names in the mix? Who are other people who have influenced you?
Well, uh, I was a kid and my older brothers were playing. I mean, the early rock and roll, like Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, um, Elvis Presley, Everly Brothers, Little Richard. I mean, actually, the first record I ever bought was Peggy Sue, a single. I was in the 4th grade, something like that. And years later, in 2011, I'm at Austin, Texas, at South by Southwest, playing a performance with my band. And this lawyer friend of mine came up and said, "I want you to meet somebody. Come here." And I thought, okay. And I went, and it was Maria Elena Holly, Buddy's wife.
Wow.
I mean, think about how full circle that is. As a little kid in Buffalo, you know, totally wet behind the ears. And I buy this record, which I played 1,000 times. Just thrilled me no end. And here I'm meeting his wife, and she bought 2 of my records, wanted me to sign them. I go, no. I'll sign. You know, you sign them. You sign them for me. And we become friends. And they have I'm an official ambassador of the Buddy Holly Educational Foundation. You know, and along with like a who's who of rock and roll. And Buddy and Maria, they lived actually. His last address was a few blocks from here on 5th Avenue and 8th Street. And it was Buddy's dream was to help teenagers, you know, wanted to learn music, kids. And so she started the Educational Foundation, and I'm an official ambassador and an honor to be there. And
it's a fantastic honor. You've earned that.
I'm a lucky guy. I said Bob Dylan for sure. You know, Bob Dylan, you know, Leonard Cohen, Tom Waits, big influences. Dylan especially is because he affected everybody. He influenced the Beatles, everybody. And
sure.
You know, it's funny. He lived like 3 buildings down. And when I first came here in the early 70s, I'd sit on my fire escape, you know, and I just watching the world go by, having a cigarette, having a drink, just watching, fascinated by New York City. And on weekends, I'd see this powder blue van pull up in front of his house. And after I knew it was Bob, having seen it many times, and he'd take his kids in the house and stuff, and just thought, wow, what a city. I mean, just down you know, my neighbor, this guy down the street. And whether it's Lou Reed, you know, God bless him, dear friend. And life is to be, if you can enjoy it and appreciate it and partake in it. And I've been lucky on all those counts. So I'm still influenced to this day. I love the Ramones. I saw the whole CBGB scene go down. I used to go there 3-4 nights a week when you know, in the early days when it just opened up. Fascinating.
Fantastic.
Fascinating experience.
Great history. A lot of history in that building. A lot of music. A lot of different directions got started there, and just what a fantastic piece of history.
A fair amount of whiskey drunk as well in that place. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we take a minute and why don't we pour ourselves a glass? I've got a little glass of something here, and then I have a special treat for all of our guests at the Whiskey Network. We like to ask a series of questions.
I'm going to open this wedding gift, wedding favor that I received in Edinburgh, Scotland, from Ewan and from Deborah on their wedding day, and I've been saving it for a special occasion. And I think this is as fitting as I can think of, considering the Whiskey Network. And this is
we are honored that you consider this a special occasion. So before I jump into the questions, why don't we have a toast? Cheers to whiskey.
Cheers to whiskey, and to you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Okay, so I like to ask 5 questions, and these are 5 of the most common questions that we see on our social media page. These are topics that get talked about, and we'd love to hear your opinion on these things. Just a quick sort of rapid fire answer session, if you would, just top of mind. Okay. So The first question. Well, we just answered this, so maybe there's a different answer for beforehand. But what was the last whiskey, bourbon, or scotch that was in your glass before you had the wedding present whiskey?
Actually, last night in the recording studio, there was still some Lafroig left, and I had a glass of Lafroig to celebrate near finishing this new record, which I'm thrilled about. So it was when you step back and you just breathe in and let it in that you've just accomplished something to celebrate with the band. It was glorious. So Lafroig.
Beautiful. Do you prefer to drink your whiskey in a specific type of glass?
Yeah, I do actually. I didn't know. I'd never thought about that before. But last in the studio, they had the round-edged, like not a rocks glass, but a bowl glass. And I realized, and it just occurred to me, like that I could smell it. The aroma seemed to be more present. So I would say a bowl glass.
Okay, great. What is your unicorn bottle?
Unicorn bottle, Lord of the Isles. It's an Ardbeg from Isla. Yeah, that'd be it.
We'll work on getting you a Lord of the Isles, Willie. Okay, hypothetical question. I am looking for a gift for a friend. My budget is somewhere between $50 and $75. What would you recommend?
I would recommend a Bowmore. A Bowmore. It's also a distillery on Islay in Scotland. I would say Bowmore.
Great choice. And finally, what's your favorite toast?
My favorite toast. That's a good. Hang on. Here's to all our loved ones, past, present, and future.
To all our loved ones, past, present, and future. Cheers, Willie.
Cheers, Mark.
I'm gonna make a lobby that hell yeah be the official favorite toast of the group with credit back to Willie Nile.
Say the word.
I want to thank you. It has been incredible sitting with you. It has been incredible talking about whiskey and how your musical career, your musical talent is entwined with whiskey. I'm sure that this is going to be a great treat for our audience. We look forward to news about your new album, and I encourage everyone to go out and hear over my shoulder, New York at Night. There's the cover. Please go out and find that album. It is a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the conversation. I've been looking forward to this. I'm still learning, and as we go, and it's a special. I enjoyed this very much. And to you, my friend, I salute you. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Cheers.
Maybe when you get back from your trip from Isla, you can come back for a second round and we can talk more.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. I'll bring stuff back.
Excellent.
Bottles under my arms through the airport. Hey, what's this guy doing? Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you, my friend. You take good care, and thanks for having me.
If you want to stick around for a minute,
Sure.
We can kind of post game if you like.
Sure.
I'll just let it run here for a quick second and we can cut it off. Tasha will edit it. Okay, good enough break. Thank you.
I'm thanking you. Lovely experience. And because that you picked up hope in listening to the music, and I've learned stuff from you about whiskey in our communications, which I'm grateful for. For me, it's about character, life, with whiskey, clearly, the differences, the subtleties. It's to be appreciated, enjoyed, shared, revered, and celebrated. And thank you for helping open the door wider for me to this magical room.
It's not very often as a writer and as somebody who's involved with whiskey that you get somebody who's kind of at where you are in the journey. Usually I'm talking to someone and they're very much at a sort of a different, like, oh, I've done all of that stuff, right? It is such a unique thing for someone like you, someone of your stature, to be sort of at that tipping point. Like I'm going to go to Isla and I am just going to experience the whole thing. I'm going to breathe in the sea air. It's going to open up my pores, and I'm just going to experience it. And I do mean it. I do hope we stay in contact, and I do hope that if you do get back to Isla, that we can have a return interview, because to close the loop on that, much like the story that you said, if talking to Buddy Holly's wife, it's obviously not on the level with that, but in my mind, it would be a fantastic part 2 of the story. I'm sure you'll be making great music, and to talk to you more about what happened. You went there. Tell me about that. Did you buy the 1 square foot of I think it's the Lefroy distillery, and
you can bet on that. You can bet on that, count on that. But I would love to do that. Let's stay in touch. I would love to. I mean, it's the reason I'm enjoying this so much is because we're sharing our passion for life and for things that make it worth living. In this case, it's around whiskey. And
if you're comfortable and you want to share a mailing address, if you have a PO box or something, I have a collection of whiskey and bourbon. I would love to bottle some of these up. I have little 2-ounce sample bottles. Wow. I would love to send you a smattering of samples.
Oh my goodness!
Just so you can. Here's what I'll do.
Interesting.
I will anonymize the samples, and I'll go whatever 1 through 5, 1 through 10, whatever, and then I'll give you a sealed envelope, and I'll say, go and try these things. Right. And then you can unseal the envelope and you can go and you can look and see what the brand is, what it is. So you go in and it's like a blind tasting.
I would love to do that. Oh,
okay.
Thank you. Love to.
Yeah.
I'll text you my apartment address here in New York, and I would love that. Wow.
Okay.
That's generous of you.
Well, if you ever play a show in Los Angeles, I would love to come and see you. I would love to participate. I'd love to pray at the altar. I am a huge live music fan, and again, I think I communicated this to you in looking at your videos. You're the real deal, and that would be a fantastic honor.
Thank you, my friend. And you'd mentioned, yes, I'm gonna send you my address in a minute, and I'm gonna put your email into my LA. When I go to LA, I've got a file. People I know I want to invite to shows. I'll put you in that.
Beautiful.
And to keep Carrie in the loop as well, let Carrie know that we want to do this again. And when I come to Los Angeles, she always comes out to see me.
Here's what happens next. What I do is I take the recording of this and I watch it and I transcribe it into a print interview. I'm not going to edit things in or out, but I'll clean it up. I'll make it concise, and we'll have the interview together. And then generally what we do is we edit the pre stuff and we edit the post stuff out, but the bulk of our interview on camera, we release that as a companion to the magazine. So February 1st, you're going to be in the issue of the digital magazine. Whoever's in charge of your socials, if we could please have a share on your social. I'll send you a link the day that it happens.
Send me a link and we'll put the word out. There's I don't know, it's a fair amount of people that see it, and
beautiful.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Whiskey Network indeed. It's different kind of an interview, but life is the same. So it's one foot follows the other, and I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Hey, you know what? I'm an amateur, and I'm lucky because I'm a fan who gets to talk to people like you. So, hopefully we do right by you, and hopefully we, get a little bit of buzz about you. But, again, the audience for us, they want to connect to other people who like whiskey. They want to know that Willie Nile drinks whiskey. And it's exactly for the same reason that you had mentioned. You said, after the show, hopefully what comes out of this, maybe once in a blue moon, you share it on your socials. Guess what? Little glass of Lefroy shows up on the stage.
You're right. You're right. And our job is just to be alive and be open and see new things. And this is so fun. So yes, share with me the link. We'll blast it out. And,
beautiful.
Life is to be enjoyed. Thank you, my friend. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this has been enjoyable. This has been a great experience. Thank you.
Really good experience for me. Meeting you and becoming friends, and I look forward to learn more. And indeed, after I hit Isla, we will powwow and I'll tell you stories because there's always something. Things always are happening.
We're all about the stories, man. Let's do it.
All right.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you so much. Yep. Take care.
Take good care. Stay safe.
Be safe.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.